Drawing trees requires a lot of work because when you compare them to other things, they have so much detail. When they are seen in a distance in a landscape painting, they may appear as silhouettes and it may be easier, but up close I find it hard with all the branches, foliage, and sometimes flowers, fruits, or cones. Recently, I have been looking at the genera of coniferous trees, which are the Abies. Abies has its name coming from Latin, which means to rise, but these trees are commonly called the fir trees. Fir trees belong to the pine family and are closely related to cedar trees. They are distributed across the northern hemisphere and mostly found on mountains. They prefer cooler temperatures and higher elevations. Most of these fir species are very large trees. They can go up to 80 meters. Fir trees are divided into different species, around 50. So many species that I cannot draw each of them. For someone who is not really into biology or science, they all look the same to me. Even scientists have methods to identify the species, like differentiating the leaves and finding out which species the tree is. For example, some trees have shiny green leaves in this genera, while some other species have waxy and dull leaves. Anyway, I picked several interesting features from different species to draw. First, I started with a landscape painting study because, as I said in the beginning, drawing trees from a distance is much easier, and because I don't get into too much detail, just using brushes and painting gave me some time to relax before I get into detailed, tighter drawings. Since fir trees like mountainous areas, I started with the trees on a hill. Actually, snow-covered mountains and fir trees with snowy branches could have been a better choice, since most of the reference I have seen were like that, but I wanted to have the contrast of colors for the tree to stand out. So in my case, a green tree on an orange-brown hill was enough to make the tree the obvious subject of my painting. Normally, I would not have a painting like this. This could have been just like a background of something else, but trying to create a page like this, which feels like an illustrated book of trees, was something new to try for me. That is a subalpine fir in the painting, also known as Rocky Mountain fir. They're native to the western mountains of United States and also Canada. They're at high altitudes, commonly found at and immediately below the tree line. So, tree line is something that I just learned about. The tree line marks the boundary of an area where trees can grow beyond which they cannot survive. So, beyond this boundary, trees are unable to endure the environmental conditions such as low temperatures, heavy snowpack, or insufficient moisture. Another term I learned is krummholz, a word coming from German language which means bent or twisted wood. If some trees are just at the tree line, because of the harsh conditions of the area, they can become really deformed and create these krummholz formations. And some species of fir trees are known to form krummholz. And various animals like mountain goats take shelter in subalpine fir clusters and krummholz. There were a lot of interesting things to draw in other species of the genera. For example, most of the trees have very interesting cones which stand upright on the branches like candles and disintegrate at maturity. Spruce trees, for instance, have hanging cones, so it can be one of the ways to identify fir trees. The cones, while green when they are young, can be brown as they get mature, and there are also different colored cones like purple and blue in different species. The cones are decorative elements of the tree. Their needle-like leaves are soft to the touch, unlike other conifers. The foliage is very aromatic, and when you crush the leaves, they release the refreshing pine-like scent. The leaves can be vibrant green, blue-green, or silver depending on the species. Fir trees have ecological benefits. Firs are used as food plants for some caterpillars, butterflies, and moths. They offer a habitat for wildlife, from birds to small mammals. For example, the seeds of the balsam fir species are eaten by squirrels, mice, and birds, while their foliage are browsed by moose and deer in the winter. Because they have dense foliage, they are good for air and noise pollution. They help to improve air quality by absorbing pollutants and releasing oxygen. They also help to mitigate climate change, and they can help to prevent soil erosion. And the wood of these trees is not really resistant to insects and decay, so firs are not really usable as timber. They are mostly manufactured as plywood and used indoors. Nordman fir, noble fir, Fraser fir, and balsam fir stand out as favored choices for Christmas trees due to their widely recognized suitability. These trees are renowned for their forms, which are like pyramids, aromatic branches, and dense foliage with excellent needle retention, making them particularly desirable for festive decorations. So the dwarf varieties of these trees are widely used as Christmas trees and as ornamental trees for small gardens, city gardens, rockeries, and rock gardens. Several fir species, including the Korean fir and Fraser fir, are not only suitable as ornamental garden trees but also exhibit decorative features at a young age, such as brightly colored cones even when their height is only 1 to 2 meters. In contrast, some fir varieties can reach impressive heights, ranging from 10 to 80 meters. These diverse fir species find cultivation in botanic gardens and specialized tree collections across Europe and North America. They are admired for their majestic heights, symmetrical shapes, and fragrant foliage, so there is even a Fir Tree Appreciation Day on June 18th. Some species have been the winners of the prestigious Award of Garden Merit by the Royal Horticultural Society. Royal Horticultural Society is UK's leading gardening organization. The type species of firs is Abies alba, which is known as the silver fir or European silver fir because they are native to mountains of Europe. I'm interested in the common names of plants because it will help me if I try to create a species for concept design projects. I can use the kinds of words that are widely used for naming plants. The most common way of naming a specific species is about location, like the example of European fir or Korean fir. So let's say I have 2 continents named Nendur and Gingara in my world, and each of them have their own fir trees. Then I could just say Nendurian firs and Gingaran firs. But I prefer the other commonly used names. For example, in fir trees we have silver fir, white fir, giant fir, red fir, noble fir, sacred fir. These are very generic naming options, just using colors, size of a plant, or the cultural importance. There are many cases where a person's name is used for a species name, mostly because they discovered that species. That can be an option for naming also. This will be a thing that I will keep in mind, taking notes of common names of the plants from now on. So, what I learned about fir trees and what can I do with it? As always, I aim to use this knowledge for world building, concept art, or just creating a little story. Abies stands out as a crucial conifer genus. Within its variety, there exist some of the tallest, rarest, and most stunning trees globally. For example, white fir can live up to 300 years. Various species hold economic importance, having been integral to commercial forestry for centuries, both within and beyond their native habitats. Additionally, a select few have gained popularity in the northern temperate Christmas tree industry in recent times. So from these points, if I am to create a story or a world, using fir trees will be easier for any descriptor environment for me. On hills, mountains, cold areas, I can say there were fir trees there. I really like the colorful cones, and the shape can be an inspiration for design also. The most inspiring part was that these trees are always considered beautiful, so that they became Christmas trees. In a fantasy world, there may not be a Christmas, but having some kind of a special day with the tree as the symbol or a gathering point can be interesting. Also, horticultural societies are another thing that I learned about thanks to doing this research. So maybe in my world, there will be a social organization such as a horticultural society. Maybe people like to have these types of competitions for their gardens or plants, and if it is in a fantasy world, using plants have a relationship with a magical system, like medicinal uses of a certain tree bark or a flower needed to cast a certain spell, things like that, then the society formed can be about horticulture of magical plants, and then the people or wizards can be much more competitive in getting a reward, because it will not be just about the beauty but also uses of the plants. The uses of fir trees outside of decorative purposes are limited, but still there can be some points that can be focused on. They cannot be used as timber, but they are okay for indoor use and indoor construction. They're also good for paper manufacture. Silver firs were used to craft wooden casks for storing and transporting wine in ancient Rome. Also, its essential oils are used in perfumes and its branches are used in beer making. Resin of balsam fir is used in cold remedies and also for making glue. So let's say I'm making a survival video game with craft being the main gameplay focus. So I can populate my game setting with fir trees, then the player will maybe collect the resin and create traditional medicine or glue, chop down the trees to gather wood, and create basic primitive tools. Many species are used as incense, and Native Americans use different fir species as traditional medicine. The sacred fir has a significance because it is home to monarch butterflies. Monarch butterflies, besides having beautiful colors, are iconic pollinators, so they're important to plant life in general. But the sacred fir is called sacred not because of the butterflies, instead just because it is used in religious festivals in Mexico, mostly for Christmas. But I actually like the idea that a tree can be a sacred thing for people just because a creature has chosen to live on that tree. Maybe the animal or insect living there is very important to people. It can be, again, a religious reason, it can be economic, it doesn't really matter. If the people feel they depend on a tree species for any reason, they can call it sacred. I would like to have a sacred tree of some kind, and it doesn't have to be a fir tree, of course, and it would be better to have a significance like this other than just ornamental value for a religious holiday. I think these are all the things that I found interesting about the fir trees, so I keep these notes like a journal to use later in different projects, but I may never have the time for it. Maybe someone else will get inspired and start their own world building project. Maybe someone had a very different idea based on these things about trees. I just hope people will share their thoughts, and this, me journaling, taking notes, creating little sketches, doodles and paintings can become something more.